He was 52, I was 19, and he possessed me in ways I can never forget. The rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn gleamed under the sodium lamps as I slammed the cab door, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. 19 years old, fresh-faced idiot from the suburbs, chasing shadows in the city that never sleeps. And there he was, waiting in the doorway of that brownstone, 52 and carved from the same granite as the Brooklyn Bridge, his eyes locking onto mine like a predator scenting blood.
David Hale.
Professor, mentor, the man who would unravel me thread by thread until there was nothing left but his name etched into my soul. I remember the sigh that escaped him first, low and ragged, like wind scraping over empty canyons. "Alex," he murmured, voice gravel rough from too many late nights grading papers and nursing whiskeys. His hand, calloused from years of gripping fountain pens and lovers long gone, reached out, fingers brushing my rain-damp cheek. The touch ignited something feral in me, a spark that raced down my spine, pooling hot in my gut. I stepped closer, the scent of his cologne, sandalwood and aged leather, mixing with the ozone tang of the storm, pulling me under like a riptide. We crashed together in the foyer, coats shedding like skins, my backpack thudding forgotten to the hardwood floor. His mouth claimed mine, urgent, demanding, tasting of black coffee and regret. I gasped against his lips, the sound muffled, my hands fisting in his crisp white shirt, feeling the steady thrum of his heart beneath. Faster than I'd imagined for a man who'd seen half a century pass. "This is madness," I whispered when we broke for air, my breath hitching, forehead pressed to his. The age between us yawned like a chasm. 33 years of lives lived in parallel universes, now colliding in this narrow hall where his bookshelves groaned under the weight of classics I'd only pretended to read. He pulled back just enough to search my face, those hazel eyes storm-dark, flecked with gold like autumn leaves caught in headlights. "Madness is pretending it isn't real," he said, thumb tracing my lower lip, sending shivers ghosting over my skin. His breath was warm, mint-laced, stirring the fine hairs at my nape. Outside, thunder grumbled, a distant echo of the turmoil brewing inside me. I was a freshman at NYU, wide-eyed and broke, slinging lattes at a campus cafe to pay for my dorm. He was the tenured giant in tweed jackets and wire-rimmed glasses, lecturing on Whitman and Woolf to packed halls, his voice a velvet blade that sliced through pretension. That night, we didn't make it to the bedroom. The living room rug, Persian, threadbare from decades of footsteps, became our battlefield. He lowered me onto it with a gentleness that belied the hunger in his grip, knees bracketing my hips. His weight a delicious pressure that pinned me, made the world shrink to the heat of his body over mine. I arched up, needy, the wool fibers scratching my bare back through my thin tee, a stark contrast to the silk of his skin. "Tell me to stop," he growled, lips grazing my collarbone, teeth nipping just enough to draw a hiss from me. But I wouldn't. My fingers tangled in his silver-streaked hair, pulling him down, the salt of his sweat blooming on my tongue as I tasted the hollow of his throat. We moved like a storm breaking, clothes tearing away in frantic pulls. My jeans unzipped with a metallic rasp that echoed too loud in the quiet brownstone. His belt buckle clinking free like a shackle snapping. The air hummed with our breaths, mine shallow and quick, his deep and measured, punctuated by soft groans that vibrated through his chest into mine. I felt every inch of him, the map of his body a topography of scars and stories. A faint line from appendix surgery in '89, freckles faded like forgotten constellations across his shoulders. He possessed me then, not with force, but with a certainty that rewrote my every nerve ending. His hands mapping me as if I were a poem he'd been waiting a lifetime to decipher. Afterward, we lay tangled in the dim glow of a single lamp, its bulb casting long shadows that danced like specters on the walls lined with first editions. The rain had eased to a patter, tapping Morse code against the window panes, syncing with the slowing rhythm of our pulses. His arm draped heavy over my waist, fingers idly tracing circles on my hip, the touch feather-light now, almost reverent. "You're too young for this," he murmured into my hair, voice thick with the afterglow and something darker. Guilt, maybe, or the ghost of experience. I turned in his hold, propping on an elbow to study him, the faint lines at his eyes crinkling as he met my gaze. Too young for what? Feeling alive. I shot back, my voice steadier than I felt, though my heart still raced, a wild thing caged in ribs too fragile. The room smelled of us. Musk and rain and the faint vanilla from the candle he'd lit earlier, now guttering low. I leaned in, pressing a kiss to the corner of his mouth, tasting the salt there. He sighed again, that canyon wind sound, and pulled me closer, his body a harbor against the uncertainty swelling in my chest. But uncertainty was the undercurrent, always. The next morning dawned crisp, October air sneaking through the cracked sash, carrying the distant honk of taxis and the sizzle of bacon from a neighbor's kitchen. I woke to the aroma of fresh coffee brewing, dark roast with a bitter edge that matched the knot in my stomach. David was at the stove, shirtless, sweatpants slung low on his hips, the muscles of his back flexing as he flipped eggs in a cast-iron skillet. 52 looked damn good on him. Broad shoulders honed from weekend hikes in the Catskills, a paunch just soft enough to be human. I padded over in my boxers, wrapping arms around his waist from behind, chin hooking over his shoulder, inhaling the clean soap scent clinging to his skin from the shower we'd shared, water still beating in the dark curls at his nape. "Morning, kid," he rumbled, amusement threading his tone as he tilted his head to brush lips against my temple. The endearment stung a little, a reminder of the gulf, but I pushed it down, nuzzling into the warmth of him instead. The sizzle of eggs popping in hot fat filled the kitchen, steam rising lazy, fogging the window overlooking the fire escape where a pigeon cooed softly. We ate at the scarred oak table, knees brushing under it, my bare foot hooking idly around his ankle, a small anchor in the domesticity that felt both surreal and inevitable. Class that day blurred into a haze. I slouched in the back of his lecture hall, notebook open but pen idle, watching him pace the stage like a panther in tweed. His voice wove through the air, dissecting leaves of grass, passion igniting his words until the room crackled with it. Our eyes met once, across the sea of undergrads scribbling furiously, and the jolt hit me like espresso straight to the vein. Heat flushing my cheeks, a secret smile tugging his lips before he looked away. After, as students milled out, he lingered at his desk, stacking papers with deliberate slowness, waiting for the door to click shut behind the last one. "You were staring," he said when I approached, voice low, laced with that professorial tease. His fingers brushed mine as he handed over my returned essay, the contact electric, lingering a beat too long. The paper was marked with his precise script, A+, with notes in the margins praising my insights on queer subtext in Whitman. "Flattery will get you everywhere," I quipped, but my pulse thrummed, the hallway emptying around us, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm of doubts. That weekend, we escaped the city, his old Jeep rumbling upstate to a cabin he'd bought in the 90s after a messy divorce. His ex-wife, a painter who'd left him for Paris and a younger muse. The drive was a symphony of classic rock on the radio, Springsteen crooning about highways and ghosts, windows down to let in the crisp bite of falling leaves. His hand rested on my thigh, thumb stroking lazy patterns through denim, the denim warm from the sun slanting through the windshield. I covered it with mine, smaller, smoother, interlacing fingers, a quiet vow amid the growl of the engine. The cabin squatted by a lake, pines whispering secrets in the wind, the water a mirror cracked by ripples from jumping fish. Inside, it smelled of pine resin and old books, the stone fireplace cold but promising. We unpacked in companionable silence, my duffel spilling jeans and tees onto the creaky floorboards, his suitcase neat with folded sweaters and a bottle of scotch. That night, fire crackling, orange tongues licking logs, sparks popping like tiny fireworks. We sat on the threadbare sofa, his arm around my shoulders, my head on his chest, listening to the steady lube dub beneath his ribs. "Tell me about her," I said softly, tracing the V of his sweater, the wool soft against my fingertips. The fire's heat painted our skin gold, shadows playing tag across the rafters. He paused, glass halfway to his lips, the amber liquid catching the light. A log shifted, sending a shower of embers up the chimney with a whoosh. "Elena," he started, voice distant, like reading from a yellowed letter. "We were 25, thought love was a bonfire that never dies. But it smolders, Alex. Leaves ash." His free hand found my hair, combing through it gently, nails scraping scalp in a way that made me hum low in my throat. I shifted, straddling his lap, the sofa springs groaning protest. "And me? Am I the spark?" My words hung heavy, laced with the vulnerability I'd buried under bravado. His eyes darkened, hands settling on my hips, gripping firm enough to bruise in the best way. "You're the wildfire," he breathed, pulling me down into a kiss that tasted of peat smoke and truth. Slow at first, then devouring, tongues tangling like roots seeking soil. The room filled with our sounds. The wet slide of mouths, my gasp as his teeth grazed my jaw, the rustle of clothes giving way to bare skin kissed by firelight. We made love there, on the rug before the hearth, the heat searing our backs as we moved together, sweat slick and urgent. His body over mine was a landscape I memorized. The salt of his skin on my lips, the rough scrape of his stubble along my inner thigh, the way he whispered my name like a prayer when he shattered. Afterward, curled against him, the fire's embers glowing like dying stars, I felt possessed. Not owned, but inhabited, his essence seeping into my bones. The lake outside lapped gentle at the shore, a lullaby underscoring the ache blooming in my chest. How long could a wildfire burn before it consumed us both? Back in the city, the real world clawed its way in, insidious as fog off the East River. Whispers started in the department lounge. Colleagues eyeing me in the halls, their conversations dying like snuffed candles when I passed. David's ex-TA, a sharp-tongued grad student named Marcus, cornered me one afternoon in the library stacks, his cologne cloying, eyes narrowed behind hipster frames. "Playing with fire, freshman? Hale's got a type, young, pretty, disposable." His laugh was a bark, echoing off the dusty spines of forgotten tomes, the air thick with the musty scent of aging paper. I shoved past him, heart slamming, the encounter leaving a sour taste like bile. That evening, I confronted David in his office, the door locked with a decisive click, blinds drawn against the twilight bleeding through the blinds, papers scattered across his desk, ungraded midterms, a half-empty mug of cold tea staining a coaster with tannin rings. "Is it true?" I demanded, voice cracking despite my effort, fists clenched at my sides. He looked up from his laptop, glasses perched low, weariness etching deeper lines around his mouth. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the worn armchair, his tone professor calm, but his eyes betrayed the storm. I paced instead, the carpet muffling my steps, the radiator hissing like a serpent in the corner. "Marcus said you've done this before. Young guys. Then what? You tire of them?" The words tasted venomous, born of fear twisting in my gut like a knife. He stood, rounding the desk, close enough that I could smell his aftershave, citrus and spice, grounding me even as I recoiled. "Alex." He reached, but I jerked back, the space between us a sudden Grand Canyon. His sigh was bone-deep, shoulders slumping under the weight of truths unspoken. "I've loved before, messily, but this is different. It's not possession, It's partnership. His hand hovered, then dropped, fingers curling into a fist. The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly, each second a hammer blow. Outside, a siren wailed, distant and mournful, underscoring the fracture widening between us. We argued then, voices rising in the confines of that book-strewn sanctum. Me hurling accusations laced with the insecurity of youth, him defending with the measured logic of age, but cracking at the edges, raw emotion bleeding through. "You're half my life," he shouted at last, voice breaking, hands raking through his hair, leaving it mussed. The sound hung, shattered glass in the air, and I froze, chest heaving, the metallic tang of blood on my tongue from where I'd bitten my lip. He crossed the gap in 2 strides, cupping my face, thumbs swiping tears I hadn't realized were falling. "I don't want to break you," he whispered, forehead to mine, breaths mingling hot and ragged. But breaks come anyway. Weeks blurred into a fevered dream of stolen moments. Late-night drives along the BQE, windows fogged from our heat. His hand on my knee as headlights streaked by like comets. Mornings in his bed, sunlight slanting through slats, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my back while the coffee percolated with a gurgle and hiss. Yet the shadows lengthened. My roommate, Jake, a straight-laced econ major with a nose for gossip, started side-eyeing my late returns, the hickeys blooming like bruises under my collar. "Dude, you're glowing, but it's sketch. Who's the mystery?" He'd probe over lukewarm pizza in our shoebox dorm, the fan whirring overhead, circulating the stale scent of yesterday's takeout. I deflected with laughs, but inside, the pressure built, a boiler on the verge. David's world intruded too. Department holiday party at a midtown loft, fairy lights twinkling against floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering skyline. He stood across the room in a charcoal suit, glass of Merlot in hand, charming donors with anecdotes that had them roaring. His laugh a deep timbre that vibrated through the crowd. I nursed a soda, leaning against a bookshelf, the spine of Giovanni's room, digging into my shoulder, a cruel irony. Our eyes met over heads, a current zipping taut, but Marcus was there, slinking close to David, hand on his elbow, whispering something that made the older man stiffen. Jealousy hit like a sucker punch, hot and nauseating, the room's chatter swelling to a roar in my ears. I slipped out to the balcony, November chill nipping at my skin through my thin sweater, the city sprawl a constellation of lights below. Footsteps behind me, I knew without turning, the familiar scuff of Italian leather on concrete. Alex. His coat settled over my shoulders, while heavy and warm, infused with his scent. I shrugged it off, whirling to face him, the wind whipping my hair, carrying the faint brine from the distant harbor. "What was that?" I snapped, voice carrying over the hum of traffic far below. His face was illuminated by the party's glow spilling through glass doors, shadows hollowing his cheeks. "Nothing. Old habits." He stepped closer, hands in pockets, posture defeated. The lie hung between us, acrid as exhaust. I laughed, bitter, the sound swallowed by the gust. Habits? Like collecting strays. My chest ached, a vice tightening with each breath, the cold seeping into my bones. He flinched, eyes flashing hurt, then resolve. "You're not a stray. You're." He trailed off, reaching, fingers brushing my jaw. I leaned into it despite myself, the callus on his thumb a familiar rasp. "Then why does it feel like I'm auditioning?" The words cracked, vulnerability spilling like blood from a fresh cut. He pulled me into his arms then, the balcony railing digging into my back, his embrace a bulwark against the night. "Because I'm scared," he admitted against my hair, voice muffled, body trembling faintly. "Scared of losing you to time, to the world that chews up boys like you." We kissed there, desperate, the city indifferent witness, lips bruising, hands clutching as if we could fuse souls through sheer will. The party noise faded to a dull throb, the wind a chorus urging us on. But as his fingers slipped under my shirt, tracing the dip of my spine, a door banged open behind us. Marcus, swaying slightly, glass in hand. "Well, this is cozy." His smirk was a blade, slicing the moment to ribbons. David tensed, pulling away, his hand lingering on my waist a second too long. The damage was done. Scandal simmered, then boiled over. An anonymous email to the dean, grainy photo from the balcony, our silhouettes unmistakable. Investigations, closed doors, the click of heels on linoleum as HR convened. David faced it stoic, tenure a shield but not impervious. His lectures thinning as students whispered, eyes darting. I holed up in the dorm, blinds drawn, the radiator clanking like accusatory fingers. Jake tried beer and bad jokes, but his concern grated, the room closing in with the scent of unwashed sheets and regret. He came to me one sleet-lashed night, knocking soft, snow melting in his hair as I yanked the door open. "We need to talk." His voice was hoarse, overcoat dusted white, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep or tears. I couldn't tell. I let him in, the space too small for the weight between us. Jake's bed a rumpled island in the corner. We sat on mine, knees touching, the mattress dipping under his weight. "They're suspending me. Pending review." The words landed heavy. A stone in still water, ripples spreading. My throat closed, a sob building, hot and ugly. This is my fault. I buried my face in my hands, the calluses on my palms rough from gripping textbooks too tight. He pried them away, his own hands steady anchors. "No, it's ours, and it's worth it." But his voice wavered, the lie thin as the ice glazing the window. Outside, sleet ticked against glass, a relentless Morse. End, end, end. We clung that night, bodies entwining in the narrow bed, the springs protesting our desperation. His mouth on mine was salvation and sorrow, tasting of salt, tears, sweat, the scotch on his breath. I mapped him with lips and hands, committing to memory the velvet slide of skin, the hitch in his breath when I nipped his earlobe, the way his fingers dug into my hips like he could brand me. "Stay," I begged into the crook of his neck, voice muffled by damp hair. The room dim, lit only by the street lamp's sodium glow filtering through cracks. "I can't," he whispered back, but he held tighter. Our rhythms sinking in a dance as old as longing, slow builds to frantic peaks, gasps echoing off cinderblock walls, the world reduced to the slick heat where we joined. Release came shuddering, his name a litany on my lips, his groan a benediction in my ear. Dawn crept in gray, finding us spent, limbs tangled, his head on my chest, listening to my heart's frantic tattoo. He left before the campus stirred, a ghost kiss on my forehead, his coat whispering over the threshold. The door clicked shut, a finality that hollowed me out. Days bled into weeks, the review dragging, rumors festering like wounds. I audited his classes from the back, invisible, the empty lectern a void. Texts came sporadic. "Miss you, kid. Hold the line. Each ping a lifeline but thinning." The hearing was a circus. Suits in a conference room smelling of stale coffee and printer ink. Voices droning legalese. I waited outside, knees bouncing, the hallway's fluorescent hum drilling into my skull. When he emerged, face ashen, tie askew, I knew. "Resigned?" he said simply, slumping beside me on a plastic chair, the vinyl creaking. His hand found mine, squeezing once, hard, before letting go. "For you. For us." But us was fracturing. He vanished into adjunct gigs upstate, emails turning to calls to voicemails unanswered in my grief. Spring thawed the city, cherry blossoms shedding pink petals like confetti for a funeral, and I wandered the paths where we'd walked, hand in hand under budding oaks, the benches still holding the imprint of our laughter. The cafe job soured, customers leering, tips drying up as word spread. Jake moved out, citing vibes, leaving me to the echo of solitude. One humid June evening, as fireflies blinked lazy in the dusk, I drove north, the Jeep he'd left me humming under rented tires. His parting gift, keys slipped under my door with a note, "Drive safe. Remember the lake." The cabin loomed unchanged, pines taller, lake still as glass under a bruised sky. He was on the porch, rocking chair creaking, a beer sweating in his fist, silver hair longer, wilder. Alex. My name was a exhale, relief and ruin. I crossed the grass, damp with evening dew seeping through sneakers, and sank to my knees before him, head in his lap, the denim ruff under my cheek. His hands stroked my hair, fingers trembling, the chair's rhythm a metronome to our shared silence. "I had to see you," I murmured, voice thick, inhaling the earthiness of him mixed with lake water. Thunder rumbled distant, heat lightning flickering like faulty memories. He tilted my chin up, eyes searching, etched deeper with loss. "You shouldn't have." But he pulled me up, into the chair's cradle, bodies folding together, the wood groaning under our weight. We talked then, words tumbling like the storm brewing, apologies laced with love, regrets sharp as hail. "You possessed me," I said, tracing his lips, the faint scar from a boyhood fall, "and set me free." The rain broke as we made love on the porch swing, chains rattling with our motion, water sheeting down, soaking us through. It was farewell woven with forever. Tender thrusts, gasps lost to the downpour. His body a familiar ache, mine yielding, claiming in turn. Climax crashed like waves, leaving us limp, rain cooling fevered skin, the world washed clean. Dawn painted the lake gold, birdsong piercing the quiet. We dressed slow, fingers lingering, the air heavy with unspoken goodbyes. At the door, he pressed a book into my hands. Whitman, inscribed, "To Alex. Leaves of you, forever." His kiss was soft, a seal. "Go live, kid. Burn bright." I drove south, rear view shrinking the cabin, tears blurring the road. He possessed me still, not in chains, but in the poetry of scars, the echo of sighs in empty rooms. 33 years between us, bridged by a love that defied clocks, leaving me whole, haunted, alive. The city swallowed me, but I carried him, a wildfire banked but never extinguished, fueling the man I'd become. The summer sun baked the asphalt as I pulled into a rest stop off I-87, the Jeep's engine ticking cool under the hood. My hands shook on the wheel, knuckles white, the leather wrap worn smooth from David's grip. 19 felt ancient now, the miles stretching like the years we'd never share. I stepped out, gravel crunching under boots, the air thick with diesel fumes and wild honeysuckle from the treeline. A vending machine hummed, its glow beckoning, and I fished quarters from my pocket, sticky with sweat, for a Coke, the can hissing open with a sharp crack that startled a squirrel into scampering. Sipping the syrupy chill, I leaned against the fender, watching semis rumble past, their air brakes sighing like weary confessions. My phone buzzed, Mom, checking in from the Jersey split level, her texts always dotted with emojis, oblivious to the storm I'd weathered. "Miss you, kiddo. Dad's grilling tonight." The normalcy stabbed, a reminder of the boy I'd been before Brooklyn's underbelly claimed me. I typed back a lie, "All good. Busy with summer reading." And pocketed it, the screen's warmth seeping through denim. Back on the road, radio crackling with static-laced Dylan. Tangled up in blue, I let the melody wrap around me, notes twining with memories. David's voice humming it off-key in the shower, steam curling like cigarette smoke, water sluicing over plains of muscle I'd worshipped. The cabin faded in the mirror, but its essence clung. the tang of wood smoke in my hair, the phantom press of his palm on my thigh. By dusk, Manhattan's skyline pierced the horizon, a jagged crown of steel and glass, welcoming me home to chaos. The dorm was a ghost town, halls echoing with the slap of my soles on linoleum, the faint mildew scent from leaky pipes a constant. Jake's side stripped bare, posters peeled, leaving adhesive ghosts on cinder block. I dumped my bag, the zippers rasped loud in the emptiness, and collapsed on the bed, springs familiar under me. Sleep came fitful, dreams a montage. His hazel eyes darkening with desire, the creak of floorboards under urgent steps, the velvet rasp of his whisper mine. Waking sweat damp, sheets twisted like restraints. I gasped into the dark, heart hammering, the clock's red digits mocking. 3:17 a.m. Morning brought decisions sharp as shattered glass. I emailed advisors, switching majors, English to film studies, a nod to the cinematic reel of us playing in my head. Classes started late July, the campus a furnace of bodies in tank tops and shorts, laughter bubbling from quads where frisbees sailed lazy arcs. I sat in lectures, notebook filling with scribbles on Scorsese's gaze. But my mind wandered to David's lectures, his pointer tapping frames frozen in passion. Evenings, I slung shots at a dive in the village, the bar's neon buzz and sticky counter a bomb, patrons' slurred stories drowning my own. One night, a regular, tall, inked arms, early 30s, leaned in, breath beery, eyes appraising. "You got that haunted look, pretty boy. Bad breakup." His fingers brushed my wrist as I poured, the touch casual but probing. I jerked back, glass clinking hard on oak, amber sloshing. "Something like that." The words tasted ash, the jukebox kicking in with Bowie, Heroes, irony thick as the fog of cig smoke from the patio. He backed off, but the encounter lingered, a bruise on my resolve. Texts from David trickled. "Grating hell up here. Thinking of your laugh." Heart emoji, simple, piercing. I replied sparse. Missed the lake dot. Fingers hovering before hitting send, the whoosh a release and a cage. August heat wave broke with thunderstorms, lightning cracking like whips, rain lashing windows as I paced the dorm, thunder rumbling in my chest. I called then, voice small over the line's static hum. "Come back," I pleaded, no preamble, the words raw, stripped. Silence stretched, broken by his exhale, long laden. "Can't, Alex. Not like this." Papers rustled, a chair creaking as he shifted. "You need space to grow." I'm the root that'd choke you." His voice cracked, the vulnerability a knife twist. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in stark white, shadows leaping like accusations. "Bullshit," I shot, pacing faster, floor cool under bare feet. "You're scared." Again. The line hummed, charged, until he sighed. "Maybe, but love isn't possession. It's release." We hung up fractured, the dial tone a dirge. I hurled the phone, it skittering across carpet, screen cracking like my composure. Sobs racked me then, ugly and heaving, curled on the bed, the pillow muffling cries that tasted of salt and loss. Dawn found me hollowed, eyes puffy, the city stirring with horns and shouts filtering up from the street. Film class screened Brokeback Mountain that week, the projector whirring soft in the dark auditorium, seats creaking as bodies settled. Ennis and Jack flickered on screen, their stolen glances a mirror to my soul, mountains vast as our chasm, shirt sleeves brushing electric. I gripped the armrest, knuckles blanching, the popcorn scent cloying. A girl's sniffle too rose back, echoing my throat's burn. When Jack died, the screen's red soaked in. I bolted, door banging behind me, cool hall air slapping my flushed face. Outside, autumn whispered early, leaves skittering across pavement like fleeing thoughts. I walked to the East River, the path crunching under sneakers, ferries hooting mournful on the water. The bridge loomed, cables humming in the breeze, a pedestrian's shout lost to the wind. I leaned on the railing, metal warm from sun, watching barges slice dark waves, foam trailing white. David's words echoed, burn bright. But how, when the fire he'd lit guttered low? A week later, package arrived. No return address, brown paper crisp, tied with twine that bit my fingers untying. Inside, a script, his yellowed pages titled Echoes in amber, dog-eared, margins alive with his script. Queries, crosses, a lover's quarrel inked red. The protagonist, a professor, 50-ish, entangled with a student, their passion a blaze that scars. Final scene, release on a porch, rain washing sins, the younger driving away, horizon open. I read through tears, pages crinkling, the dorm's lamp casting pools of yellow. His note tucked in back. For you. Direct it someday. Love, D. The pen's flourish trembled, emotion bleeding through ink. I clutched it, chest aching, the words a lifeline tossed across miles. Fall semester ramped, leaves turning fire orange, crunching underfoot to classes where professors droned on mice and scene. But I saw us in every frame, close-ups of longing eyes, montages of tangled sheets. I started shooting shorts on my phone, grainy clips of city nights. Shadows dancing in alley glow, hands almost touching across cafe tables. The bar gig evolved. Tips better, stories swapped with a drag queen named Ruby, her sequins catching light like stars, laughter husky over gin. One crisp October eve, echo of our first storm. I screened my latest at a campus open mic, the student union buzzing, fairy lights strung haphazard. Wildfire rolled, 5 minutes of raw cuts. Cabin porch in rain, staged with a hose. Bridge kisses, actors, but faces blurred to ours, ending on a jeep tailing into dawn. Applause thundered, wolf whistles piercing, Ruby whooping from the back. Kids got soul. Post-screening, a prof cornered me, silver fox, tenure track, eyes keen. Hale's influence? The possession motif, brilliant. I nodded, throat tight, the room's heat pressing. Something like that. Later, alone in the quad, benches slick with dew, I texted David a clip link. Burning bright, thanks. Dots danced, then proud. Always, heart stuttered, but steady. Thanksgiving loomed, family pulling. Mom's turkey scent calling from Jersey. Dad's bad puns over pie. I drove home, wipers swiping rain, radio crooning holiday tunes that twisted nostalgic. Dinner was chaos. Aunts clucking, cousins wrestling. The dining table groaning under platters, steam rising fragrant. Sage, butter, cranberry tart. I sat quiet, fork scraping china. Mom's hand patting mine. You okay, honey? Distant. Her eyes, blue like mine, probing gentle. Fine, I lied, smiling through mashed potatoes. The gravy's warmth a poor substitute for his touch. Night in my old room. Posters faded, bed narrow. I scrolled his sparse online presence. Adjunct bio at a community college, photo stern, but smile crinkling eyes. Sleep evaded, moon silvering the ceiling, cricket chirps outside a lullaby incomplete. Back in the city, winter gripped hard, snow blanketing stoops in hush, boots sloshing slush to classes. I directed a student play, echoes adapted, cast young, hungry, theater smelling of dust and paint, lights hot on skin. Opening night, house packed, curtains parting with a hush, the professor's monologue ripping from the actor's throat. You possessed me, not with chains, but with fire. Gasps rippled, my chest swelling, spotlights blinding tears. After, bows taken amid cheers, I slipped out to the alley, breath fogging, dumpsters reeking of wet cardboard. Phone buzzed, unknown number. Saw the review. Stunning. David's voice, warm as hearth, crackled over the line. Heard it was your baby. My back hit brick, cold seeping through coat. Inspired by the best. Laughter shared, light, then heavy. Alex, Christmas, the cabin. Heart leaped, a deer in headlights. Yeah, God, yeah. The call ended soft, promise humming. December winds howled as I packed, duffel stuffed with thermals, the Jeep's heater blasting against frost-laced windows. Upstate roads twisted, pines bowing under snow, radio fading to static whispers. The cabin glowed, chimney puffing smoke like a beacon, David's silhouette in the window, tall, waiting. I crunched up the path, boots sinking, breath pluming white. Door opened before knock, his arms engulfing, wool sweater scratching my cheek, scent of pine and him overwhelming. Inside, fire roared, logs popping, rugs strewn with packages, simple wrapped in newsprint. We ate stew, thick with venison and root veg, spoons clinking bowls, knees brushing under the table scarred by years. Missed this, he murmured, eyes soft over candle flicker, wax dripping lazy. Conversation flowed easy at first. My films, his classes, then deeper, voices low, the storm outside a curtain. Why now? I asked, later, on the sofa, his head in my lap, fingers combing silver strands, fire's heat toasting our toes. He shifted, hazel locking mine, hand covering my heart. Couldn't stay away. You're in my blood. Kiss followed, slow burn to inferno, clothes shedding to the floor with soft thuds, bodies reacquainting. His weight familiar anchor, my gasps sinking with wind's howl. Night blurred in waves of touch, peaks shattering quiet, afterglows whispered vows renewed. Christmas morn, snow blanketed pristine. We walked the lake's edge, boots post-holing crust, breaths mingling clouds. Mittened hands swung, his larger engulfing mine, the world muffled, magical. Back inside, cocoa steamed, marshmallows bobbing, cinnamon dusting foam, as we exchanged gifts. He, a vintage camera, leather case supple. I, a journal, leather-bound, first page inked, for your next chapter. But chapters turn. New Year's Eve, champagne popped with corks bang, bubbles fizzing on tongues, countdown on a crackly radio. We danced slow in the kitchen, linoleum cool under socks, his cheek to my hair. To us, he toasted, glass clinking mine, eyes shimmering. Fireworks boomed distant, but our spark sufficed. January thawed tentative, classes resuming, the city shedding white for gray slush. David stayed upstate, but visits wove, weekends stolen. The Jeep's miles a toll gladly paid. Spring crept, dogwoods blooming pink against brick, my thesis shaping. A feature on forbidden loves, interviews with elders, their stories threads in my tapestry. One April shower, I arrived soaked, thunder grumbling farewell. He toweled me dry, laughter rumbling, but his eyes held shadows. Offer came, tenure at Cornell. Pride swelled, then sank. That's huge. Hug tight, but his hold lingered, reluctant. Summer again I graduated, cap tossed, gown swishing, mom snapping pics, tears proud. David in the crowd, back row, nod subtle, smile private. Reception buzzed, hugs and toasts, but I slipped away to the garden. Roses heavy-scented, bees humming lazy. He found me, suit rumpled, tie loose. Proud doesn't cover it. Arms wrapped, chin atop my head, the world fading to heartbeat duo. Yet distance gnawed, calls shortened, texts lagged, his adjunct load crushing. Fall leaves fell, my first job. PA on an indie set in Queens. Days blurring in craft services coffee and clapperboard snaps. Evenings, editing reels, the apartment I rented. Walk up in Bushwick, walls thin, neighbors salsa thumping. Felt vast, empty. Thanksgiving solo, takeout turkey cold, TV droning parades. Phone silent, hurt festering like untreated cut. I drove north uninvited, snow flurrying, wipers slashing arcs. Cabin dark, no smoke. Panic clawed, knocking frantic, knuckles raw. Door opened, light spilling, his face gaunt, unshaven. Alex? What? Missed you? I blurted, stepping in, coat shedding water. Stew pot cold on stove, papers avalanche on table. You've been ghosting. Accusation hung, the air chill, radiator silent. He deflated, rubbing neck, stubble rasping. Drowning. The move, the prep. Thought space would help. Space kills? I whispered, closing gap. Hands fisting his shirt, cotton soft worn. He yielded, mouth crashing mine. Desperate, tasting of neglect and need. We tumbled to the rug, fire unlit, cold biting skin, but heat built fierce. Clothes frantic, gasps sharp, bodies reclaiming lost ground. After, curled naked, his whisper, I'm sorry, won't happen again. But it did. Cornell swallowed him, lectures, committees, a life reshaping. Visits dwindled to months, then holidays strained. My career climbed, shorts festival bound, buzz building, but loneliness echoed. Nights scrolling his social, envy at tagged events, younger colleagues orbiting. 2 years post-grad, a premiere in Tribeca, glitz and gowns, flashes popping like gunfire. Wildfire evolved to feature, David's script backbone, credits rolling his name, based on a story by. After party hummed, champagne flutes clinking, ruby air-kissing cheeks, sequins dazzling. He arrived late, suit sharp, hair silvered fuller, eyes scanning till locking mine across the room. Heart stuttered, I wove through, crowd parting. You came. Hug brief, public. But his hand lingered low back, heat searing. Wouldn't miss. We talked shop, laughs forced, undercurrents turbulent. Balcony escape, city lights sprawling, his cigarette smoke curling bitter. Proud, he said, exhaling slow, cherry glowing. But distant. Yeah. Wind tugged my collar, chill nipping. Life. Silence thick. Then, still love you. Words soft, ash falling. I turned, searching his face, lines deeper, but fire banked. Always. Kiss stolen, quick, tasting tobacco and time. Months later, news hit, his book, Possessed Echoes, memoir veiled, publishing buzz. Launch in the village, bookstore packed, air thick with ink and wine. I attended incognito, back row, heart pounding as he read, voice rich, passages ripping from us. The brownstone storm, cabin rains, porch farewells. Q&A. A fan asked, the younger lover real? He paused, eyes finding mine in crowd, smile wry. Real as wildfire. After signing line thinning, he slipped me a copy, inscription fresh. To Alex. You freed me. Burn on. Handshake public, but fingers squeezed, promise unspoken. Life diverged. My films greenlit, his tenure solid, paths parallel again. Visits rare, but potent. A weekend in the city, hotel sheets crisp, bodies urgent. Morning coffees shared with newspapers rustling. Happy? He'd ask, spoon stirring sugar, granules dissolving sweet. Yeah, I'd lie or truth. With you always, but endings loomed, meaningful in release. At 30, I directed my first blockbuster, set in LA. Palms swaying, ocean crashing eternal. David visited set, tweet out of place amid trailers, watching monitors glow with scenes of love defying odds. Dinner that night, rooftop overlooking sunset-streaked waves, forks tinkling plates of seared ahi, salt air tangy. You've become, he said, eyes soft over wine rim. You made me. Hand across table, brief touch, electric still. Dawn flight back east, his kiss at gate a seal. Visit soon. He did. Months later, autumn gold in the Catskills. Hiking trails crunchy, leaves carpeting paths. Cabin waited, updated, new rugs, bookshelves groaning fuller. We walked silent, hands brushing accidental, then intentional. Porch swing creaked that eve, blankets tucked, stars pricking velvet sky. Age catches, he murmured, head on shoulder, breath even. Doesn't dim.
Fingers interlaced, met.
Love-making gentle now, reverent, explorations slow, sighs deep, climaxes waves lapping calm. Morning, coffee brewed, mug steaming, he said, tour starts next week. Europe, pride mixed bittersweet. Go conquer. Hug tight, his frame leaner but strong. Years spun. My Oscars whisper, his lectures legendary, calls oceans apart. At 40, I returned to the cabin alone. Key under mat still, dust motes dancing in sunbeams. Lake mirrored blue, pines sighing. I sat porch, swing groaning, book in lap, his memoir, pages soft from reads. Texted, here, missing you. Reply swift, soon, love. But soon stretched. News came winter. Call from a mutual. Voice hushed. Cancer. Prostate. He's fighting. World tilted. Phone slipping, snow outside pristine mocking. I flew east, hospital sterile. Beep steady, antiseptic sting nostrils. He lay pale, tubes snaking, but smile crooked. Hey kid. Voice weak, but eyes fire flicker. Always the kid. Bedside chair scraped, hand taken, veins prominent, grip firm, days blurred. Jello wobbling untouched, monitors beeping Morse of hope, his stories weaving, laughter rasping. Remission whispered spring, but shadows lingered. Summer, cabin again, him frail but fierce, me cooking stews, spoons clinking familiar. Evenings, fire crackling, his head in lap, fingers combing hair thinned. No regrets, he murmured, embers glowing. None. Kiss forehead, skin paper thin. Fall tour cancelled, he wrote final chapters, letters sealed, addressed future. For when? Porch talks deepened, sunsets bleeding orange, lake lapping gentle. Winter gripped, snow burying steps. One dawn, I woke to quiet. His chest still, hand limp in mine. Sigh escaped, last canyon deep. Tears fell hot, body curling around his, the room holding breath. Funeral spring, brownstone filled mourners, eulogies flowing. I spoke last. He possessed me, not to hold but to launch. Wildfire eternal. Ashes to lake, boat rocking gentle, petals scattering pink. Years later at 52, his age then, I stood cabin porch, swing creaked under weight, book open. Leaves wind rifling pages. Partner beside, gentle, pure age, love steady. But David lingered, possession sweet scar. Sun dipped, gilding water, and I smiled, whole. He freed me as I him, meaning in release, love's echo undying.